What is a god's greatest legacy? For Odin, it was a kingdom and his heroic sons. But for Loki, the god of chaos, his legacy was something far darker, forged in the crucible of his own torment. This is not a story of fatherhood. It is a story of biological warfare, a tale of cosmic treason. Today, we investigate the most sinister of Loki's conspiracies, his deliberate union with the giantess Angrboða, the bringer of sorrow to father the three monsters destined to kill the gods and bring about Ragnarok. This was his true, perfect revenge, not to fight the gods himself, but to create the very monsters that would tear their world apart. And then watch as the gods themselves, in their terror, unknowingly prepare them for their final apocalyptic roles. This is the story of Loki's children. Our story begins, as many Norse tragedies do, with a prophecy that haunted Odin's dreams. The Valva, a powerful seeress, foretold that the union between Loki, the chaotic blood brother of Odin, and the giantess Angrboða would produce a brood of monsters that would play a pivotal role in the gods' destruction at Ragnarok. Any wise king would have acted to prevent such a union, but the gods of Asgard, in their arrogance, perhaps did not take the threat seriously until it was too late. Loki traveled to the Iron Wood, a dark and malevolent forest in Jotunheim, where monstrous troll women lived. It was there he sought out Angrboða, a powerful and fearsome giantess whose name literally means she who brings sorrow. Their union was not one of love, but of shared ambition and a mutual hatred for the Golden Order of Asgard. It was a calculated political and biological alliance, a strategic decision by Loki to create the living weapons he would need for his final war. From this unholy pairing, 3 children were born, each one a living key to a different aspect of Asgard's prophesied doom. The firstborn of this unholy union was the wolf, Fenrir. He was not born a monster, but a mere pup brought to Asgard by the gods, who wished to keep the prophecy under their control. But Fenrir grew at an astonishing, unnatural rate, soon becoming a giant wolf of terrifying size and strength that roamed the fields of Asgard. The gods' fear grew with him. They saw not a creature, but the living embodiment of their own doom. Twice, they tried to trick him into being chained under the guise of a game to test his strength. And twice, he shattered their strongest iron fetters with contemptuous ease. For the third attempt, they commissioned the dwarves to create Gleipnir, a magical, unbreakable ribbon, to trick the now suspicious wolf into being bound by it. The god of justice, Thor, placed his own hand in Fenrir's mouth as a pledge of good faith. When the chain held fast, and Fenrir realized he had been betrayed for a third and final time, he bit off Thor's hand. The gods jammed a sword in his mouth to keep him from howling, and left him chained to a rock where he would wait for millennia, nursing a burning, righteous hatred until the day of Ragnarok. In their desperate fear, the gods had created their own killer. The second child of Loki and Angrboða was a serpent, Jörmungandr. Fearing its potential and horrified by its serpentine form, Odin decided on a different tactic: banishment. He took the young snake and hurled it with all his might into the great ocean that encircles Midgard, the world of men, hoping it would be lost forever in the endless abyss. But it did not die, it thrived. The ocean became its kingdom, its feeding ground. It grew and grew, feeding on the great whales and sunken ships, until it became so impossibly colossal that it encircled the entire planet, its head eventually finding and biting its own tail. Odin's attempt to banish the threat only placed it in the perfect strategic position. Jörmungandr became the world serpent, a living, structural pillar of the cosmos, whose very existence holds the tectonic plates of the world together in a fragile balance. The apocalypse of Ragnarok can only begin the moment he decides to release his tail. A cataclysm that will rack the world with earthquakes and poison the skies. He is Thor's fated arch-nemesis, a world-breaking power created from a god's act of fearful rejection. The third child was a daughter, Hel. She was born a horrifying paradox. One half of her body was that of a beautiful, vibrant, living woman, while the other half was the decaying, blue-black, mottled flesh of a corpse. Seeing this grim omen, Odin cast her down into the deepest, darkest realm, Niflheim, and gave her dominion over the dishonorable dead, those who die from sickness or old age. But this, too, was a fatal miscalculation. He had not imprisoned a monster. He had crowned a queen. He gave her an entire kingdom, which would come to be named after her, Helheim. And more importantly, he gave her an army, the countless, resentful souls of the dishonorable dead, a ghostly legion thirsting for a chance at glory. At Ragnarok, it is she who will lead this army aboard the horrifying ship Naglfar, made from the fingernails and toenails of the dead, to lay siege to the world of the living. Odin's attempt to hide her away had only given her the time and the resources to become one of his greatest enemies. The final verdict is in. Loki's children were not random monsters. They were a calculated act of biological and political warfare against the gods. He didn't just father children. He engineered the specific instruments of Asgard's destruction, each designed to counter a specific pillar of Odin's power. He created Fenrir, the embodiment of physical force, destined to kill the king, Odin. He created Jörmungandr, the symbol of natural chaos, destined to kill the champion, Thor. And he created Hel, the ruler of the resentful masses, destined to lead an army against Asgard itself. The gods in their terrified reactions, did not prevent the prophecy. They became its unwitting agents. Their every move, the betrayal of Fenrir, the banishment of Jörmungandr, the coronation of Hel only serving to nurture the hatred and power of Loki's children, ensuring they would be ready and willing for their apocalyptic roles. This was Loki's true perfect revenge. Not to fight the gods himself, but to create the very monsters that would tear their world apart.